Hey everyone, welcome to the Grind Together podcast. We're the Grinders. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Matt. And on this podcast, we want to create opportunities for growth through real conversation.
Let's go. Okay, we are slowly approaching, not slowly, like quickly.
Yeah, Thanksgiving's like a couple weeks away.
Approaching the holiday season of Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, and then New Year, New You, happiness, better future. I don't know. But I feel like these next couple weeks for a lot of people are really stressful, and they are very like, you get in your head. Financially, it's kind of stressful for a lot of people. Emotionally, it's a lot for people. And then I feel like a lot of relationships take huge tolls during the holiday season. I know ours, like, hands down, probably, it was funny, someone asked us what's one of the things we fight about the most, and I feel like it's still one of the things we probably fight about, but not as bad as we used to, which is the holidays.
Yeah. No, our relationship always takes a toll around the holidays. Yeah. And that's why we wanted to talk about this. We did an episode on it last year, but now we're that much older and that much wiser, and we can do it again, right?
Yeah. Just learning from our mistakes and sharing the knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So kind of digging into the holiday season and expectations and how to handle families and how to prioritize your relationship and how to not want to kill each other when somebody overspends or somebody maybe doesn't spend, and you are left really, really, really disappointed. And I'm going to share a story about that later, because that just like sparked a memory in my mind that's actually so funny. But I think it's so interesting because we get around this time of year and I feel like it's just a constant rush of comparison.
Okay.
At least for me it is.
No,
it's like I want this and they have that, and what am I gonna get? And like you and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about like, I love Christmas. Like, I love Christmas. I love the feeling behind Christmas. I love the Christmas season. Like, I'm really getting the itch to put our Christmas decorations up.
Yeah.
And there's just something magical about it. And there's a feeling behind it, an emotion behind it. And I think it wasn't until I really got honest with you about that feeling that you understood it.
Well, yeah. And I think the reason that you're saying this is it comes down to our biggest advice around the holidays is being able to talk with your spouse and being able to communicate very effectively and early on, which is something that I was not good at and I'm still working on. And saying, hey, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to communicate it to you, but what are we going to plan together, right? And so when it came to the holidays, we wouldn't have plans, and I didn't know your love for this holiday so much. And so every time that you wanted to do something or create a tradition or go and do something, and I kind of shit on it, right? Yeah. It would always cause contention in our little family and in our relationship as well. And so my viewpoint on Christmas and all of the holidays, truthfully, is a lot more negative than yours.
Yeah. You even said to me this morning, like, you really like Christmas that much?
Yeah, I don't like Christmas.
Yeah, I do.
I think as a kid, I liked Christmas because you got things, right? But as an adult, there's so much more responsibility. It's an end of a year. My head runs. I start thinking about like taxes and income and like, what do we need to plan for the next year? And what things do we need to start ramping up? And so like, I'm not even thinking about traditions or Christmas lights or anything like that. And it's just truthfully, it's just another thing to do. It just sounds like more work. And so yeah, it doesn't make it fun. And then you get little kids and it's like, well, these little kids are entitled and they want all these things and I have to go buy it for them and then I have to wrap it. And so this is where my head's at. And you're like, oh, the lights are pretty. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I think the difference...
And it makes me feel really good. And I'm like, this doesn't make me feel good because there's so much stuff underneath going on. And I think I say that just because I think that a lot of guys go through that same thing.
For sure.
But I love that you brought in the emotion of Christmas because I didn't understand why you loved this stupid thing so much, right? Or why we had to go do all these things just to make it whatever you wanted it to be. But now that I understand that, and now that we've had those conversations, it makes it a lot easier to be like, oh, okay, cool. I want to do this for you because I want you to be happy. I want our kids to also have traditions. And I'm okay kind of taking the back seat, and I want to see this because I love you guys. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the key thing that's missing there, and the thing that I think I love the most about it is I said, like, at the beginning of the episode, it was like the holiday season is hard because of the comparison, which like I fall into that trap a lot, as far as like, well, this person's doing this and they're going on this vacation, and like, oh, they bought their kid this, and what gift list here. Do you know what I mean? Like we get consumed in like the physical things. Mm-hmm. But when I really get honest, it's like the thing that I love most about the holidays is it creates an opportunity for everybody to be very present and very like in their element as far as like family, right? And so it's like at the end of the day, it's a feeling. It's not necessarily an actual thing, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah. And so that's what I was trying to get at, is like, I'm trying to get to that feeling through you guys. Like, I want you guys to experience happiness, because that truthfully does make me happy.
But why do you think you can't get it on your own?
Well, I genuinely just have never liked the holiday season. And that's why.
But have you ever really tried?
I mean, we could get after that if you want to, but...
No, I genuinely am like wondering, like, have you ever really tried to enjoy it?
No, like I said, as a kid, I loved it, right? But as a dad, it's difficult, because it literally in my head, it's so much more work. It's more work, it's more money, it's more effort. It's like all of the good stuff gets taken away. And that's why I'm like, me trying is seeing the happiness in you and in the kids. Does that make sense? Because the whole tradition of it, I don't understand.
Like if we weren't
I would rather go sit on a beach than put up a Christmas tree and buy a whole bunch of Christmas presents. So,
but I tried to do that.
But the kids don't want that.
And you were like, the kids don't want that. But how do you know that that's not what they want?
Well, I mean, that's what we could ask them, I guess.
I don't know.
No, yeah.
I'm digging into. I'm like, I don't know how like deep you want me to.
No, truthfully, I'm here for it. I just like it's. I think it's a cool perspective for anybody out there that would also feel the same.
Yeah.
So, but I think the biggest thing that we struggled with, that we are now working on, and that we've perfected just a little bit, let's say we're one step ahead of you listening, is being able to say what we're wanting as far as planning goes. Because you said everything comes together as a family during the holidays, right? But that's also a big point of contention.
For sure. And I think, going back into like a concept that we teach over and over and over again, everything starts before you get married, right? So we get married, and then we automatically, especially during this time of year, it's like, well, you're together because you're now a family, but then like you still have two separate families outside of your own little family, right? Whether you have kids or not, like if you're married or even you're dating somebody, seriously, like that's your person, that's your partner, that's the person that you're spending this time with. But you still have two other families that you came from, right? Like I have my family, you have your family. And I think a lot of times when we get married, it's like we don't have a damn clue how to like navigate that, because my mom has opinions and my dad has opinions, and your mom and dad have opinions, and they have expectations, and vice versa, right? Yeah. And so we're over here like, well, who do we please and what do we do? And we want to be here for this family, but like also I really want to be with you over here. And you're like, and things are different, right? Like your traditions that you grew up with are so different than my traditions. And not that they're bad or good or anything. It's just they're different. And the feeling behind it is different, right? Like I had to, when I was explaining Christmas to you and explaining like my love of it, was very much my love of, hey, this is so important to me because of the feeling I have growing up with my family and the things that my mom did to make things very magical, and even my dad. And I said to you, and if you have little ears in the car, maybe like turn this part off because I don't want to ruin anything for them. Yeah. But for me, it was like, okay, cool. It's the magic behind, even now as a 32-year-old woman, we do Christmas a lot of times at my mom and dad's house because we are the only ones with kids. It makes it fun. Like, it's just, again, it's that feeling of Christmas morning at my mom and dad's house, and my mom does breakfast, and it's, you know, and then we're not trying to juggle and go around everywhere. Mm-hmm. But even as a 32-year-old adult woman who is doing Christmas for her kids, and I'm stuffing stockings, and I'm building toys, and I'm playing Santa, right? My dad and mom still to this day as an adult will be like, you got to go to bed so Santa can come. And I'm like, wait, Santa's coming. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, that's so lame, because like, I know. Yeah. Because I am that, and you are that. But there is still this magic and this element to it that makes this magical. And it's almost like I don't even know how to put like the emotion on it, but it is this emotion that it's like irreplaceable anywhere else, right? And so,
Yeah. So would that be your advice then?
what?
As far as like if you're struggling with in-laws, it's almost having those conversations and taking your spouse, because that's what you did for me, because I didn't understand it. And so you're just like, hey, this is why I feel this way towards this holiday. Like, I love Thanksgiving, and this is why I love it.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think it's that with any holiday, right? It's that with when you bring the emotion into it and you bring the memories and like the core things that like make it magical for you, whatever that is, right? And you bring it into a personal and an emotional basis.
Yeah.
Because my experience with it has nothing to do with you, right? I love the holidays for a lot of other reasons when it comes to you and I, because it's like when you and I met. And like, I still remember when we were dating and we had just barely met and we stayed up all Christmas Eve texting each other.
Cute.
And I was sleeping in the fort that my siblings make. But I literally texted you, I think, until probably 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to spend Christmas with you that night. Do you know what I mean? And so I think it is making it very personal and then also bringing the emotion into it, as far as like, this is what it's doing for me emotionally, because I let you into my world there and I bring that sense. And I think you can do the same thing for me, and you do the same thing for me, of like why it's important for you to be at certain things or to spend time with certain people. Like, and I think a lot of times that is missed. A lot of times I feel like we go right to logic of like, well, this just makes sense. It's my family's year, or, you know, like this is the expectation that's been put on me.
Right. So to avoid that, because I think that that's the perfect place that you went, like, hey, it's my family's year. This is what's happening.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's, I mean, let's backtrack it a little bit, because you're going to have the conversation. Our suggestion is right now it's November, like this will drop November,
whenever,
like 16th, 17th or something like that. So you've got a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving. Now is the time to have a conversation with your spouse and explain to them, like, whether or not you already have a plan, like maybe we're going to your house or maybe we're going to my house and we're visiting my family. Explain to them what Thanksgiving is for you and some of the memories you have behind it. Right. And like Lauren is saying, bring in some of the emotions of like, this is how I actually felt during this Thanksgiving. And this is why it means so much to me to be around my family. And right, regardless of whose it is. But then, so have that conversation, both sides. But then you have to understand that you guys are your own unit and your own family as well. Right. And we've done this. We've had to gone down to it where we literally took both sides of the both sides out, both in-laws, and said, well, if the in-laws weren't involved, what would we want to do?
Yeah.
And what traditions would we want to make? And that's what was the most important thing, in my opinion, that we have done that saved our relationship through the holidays. Because when it came down to it, if we only spent a couple hours here, a couple hours there, we knew we were doing exactly what we wanted. And let's say I didn't want to go to your parents or you didn't want to come to mine, right? Because you knew how important it was for me to go to mine, we were going to be there, but you were also going to find a reason to want to be there.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's the same reason that I feel of like, I don't really love these holidays, but I want to know that my kids are happy. Like, that's my want. I want to know that my wife is happy. Right. So I'm finding what I want throughout all the things that I necessarily, air quotes, don't want to be doing, because we want everybody in every situation to get exactly what you want. And so if that means going over your in-laws, now we know what it means for your spouse to be there. And if your want is to be with your spouse, then you have a reason to go. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and I also think it's finding...
Sorry, but then it's having that conversation now, right? Because I started there and then went off on a tangent. And I was always, not to cut you off, but I was always really nervous to say like, hey, babe, I want to go to my parents' house because of this, this, and this. I was always super nervous to say that, because I was always worried that you were going to get super defensive and snappy and say, well, I want to go because of this, this, and this.
For sure.
So that's where there's the conversation, and it has to be had. Because if you don't have it, you're going to end up at somebody else's house super resentful.
Or you're going to be hours before and you're going to get in a fight.
And that's the other part. Yeah.
And there's also different expectations. So like, that's what I was going to say, is finding the joy in wherever you're at. Right. And that's really hard for me to say. Like it is, because I am as stubborn as they come, and I'm the oldest, and I have younger siblings, right? And so when we first got married, like rewind 11 years ago, I still had really young siblings, and it was fun for me to be a part of it. And I truthfully felt really left out when we were at my parents' house, and when we weren't over there. And I was really stuck in my ways of like, no, this is the way that you do it, and this is how it's done, and like, screw your family, right?
Because you had traditions.
Because I had traditions and I had things.
And when you get married, they don't change, but they do.
But they do.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I wish I could go back and tell my younger self is to like enjoy the things that the other side of the family is bringing into your life.
Wow, that's cool.
And what I mean by that is, there are things that my family did growing up that we don't do anymore. Because we can't, like, right? Like we used to go to Temple Square and do all the lights at Temple Square, and they don't do that anymore. And so we had to find new traditions, right? And as we got married and we had kids, we had to adjust, and we had to be flexible, and we had to figure out, again, what we were wanting.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing I think that your family has always done is they've always just, as much as it drives me crazy, and I'm learning to like go with the flow, right? It's my type A personality, is that regardless of whatever the plan is, there's always like 3 specific things we always do on Christmas. I can think of Christmas or Christmas Eve, right? And we read a story, and we like do the gift exchange, and we spend time together, right? And it doesn't have to be this big extravagant thing. And I've learned to really appreciate that about your family. But when we were first married, it drove me crazy.
Yeah.
Because I thought it had to be this big thing. I thought it had to be this planned event. I thought we had to have all these things planned and order and itinerary and X, Y, and Z, right? And I think as maybe I've gotten older and just more mature, I've learned to really appreciate that. Like, I don't want to say the simplicity because it's not really simple, but it's presence, and it's just like, it's just being together. It's the togetherness. It's what I actually really love about the holidays, and your family really provides that during that time. Do you know what I mean? But I think a lot of times it gets forgotten, and it gets
forgotten in all of like the travel, in all of the dress up nice, in all of the make sure your hair's done.
Well, in the scheduling.
And all of the scheduling and like the presents, and it actually being connected as a family gets forgotten. And that's where I'm like, we can get that in other areas, right? But if this is the arena that we're doing it in Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, then I love that because we get to spend time together. But what I don't want for people, because it's happened to us and it's happened to me specifically, I don't want somebody to go and be in a place where they don't want to be. And so that's where I really, really, really want to hone in on, like, find your want and find a reason that why you want to be at the place that you're at. And if it's only just because you love the hell out of your spouse, then that can be enough.
Yeah.
Right? Because it gets so frustrating to be somewhere when you're like, like my parents are expecting me, right? Or like I should be there. All of my siblings are there, right? You felt that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that that's the communication part of it now. And communicating not only with your partner, but also with your family. And also letting your family know. Because like, it's so funny. Like we're talking about this, and like we're literally just going off of our past mistakes.
But
like,
we've even had clients that have said like, well, my in-laws are really offended that their kid's not going to be there.
Yeah.
Right? So go for it.
No, I was just saying, like, it goes down to still making that other family or whatever it is, whatever decision you choose to make, you can get exactly what you're wanting, and so can your partner. Like, and I think you and I are a testament to that, right? Like the holidays for us now are very, and maybe it's just you bending over and being like, I actually just don't care anymore, and like whatever Lauren wants, great. But I don't believe that, because I feel like you and I talk about it so openly because we had so many years where we didn't, and then like I literally can go back and look at pictures and be like, we were fighting there, and like I was pissed to be there here, and like I remember the text I sent my mom at this one, and like why the fuck am I here? I don't want to be here, and like those kind of things, right? And it's like, ugh, that's icky. I don't want to feel like that. I want to go into these so happy, right? So it's like having the conversation with your spouse, right? And being like, hey, so it's Thanksgiving. Like, what are you planning on doing in the morning? Like, I know shooting for you is like a really big deal. And like, you normally go do that with your family. Is that something you're going to plan with your family?
Yeah.
And it's like, most often than not, it's like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, cool.
So,
So if
like,
there's no
talk with-
plans, right? Then what are we going to do? So like on my end where I am a planner and you're not, I'm like, hey, so Thanksgiving this year's with my family and we're planning on going to go see Moana that night after we eat dinner. And that's all my expectation for the day. Those two things. Other than that, whatever you want to do, I'm like, what do you want to do in the morning? Do you want to go, like, are you going to go do this? Do you want to spend time with your family in the morning? Because that would be really fun, right? Or like maybe the day before or after. And same with like Christmas. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, cool. You can get whatever you're wanting. You can see both families both days. Unless you're like traveling out of state. Maybe you can't. We like obviously are very lucky we have both families close. But I think it ultimately comes down to like, what are you wanting in between your partnership? The reason we do Christmas morning at my mom and dad's house, and maybe you can say I'm wrong about this, but is because for you and I, we didn't want to be running around everywhere.
Yeah.
And feeling like we were like back and forth all over the place, right? Our goal was to just be like, we want it to be really chill. We want it to be easy. We want to be able to relax and hang out and then go be able to spend time with the other family later on in the day, whatever that looks like, right? And we're really lucky that we can do that. And that was why we chose to do it that way, right? Our kids love it. It's easy for us. It provides a lot of memories. But you and I got exactly what we were wanting in that moment without having to compromise anything else. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think communicating and talking about it like earlier on is huge just because.
So and I think that's the hardest part too, like coming from a non-planner, talking to a planner, is you actually have to like plan.
Yeah. Because there's so many times we've like been in a situation and you're like quiet or you're like, I can tell you're antsy and I'm like, hey, are you okay? And you're like you just said, like, well, all my siblings are at my mom and dad's house and like I really feel like we should be there. And I get upset because I'm like, well, we already had this conversation so many times and you told me you didn't care or you told me that it wasn't important or like it was okay if we missed or whatever. And like now you're upset and now I'm upset because I want you also to be happy and I also want you to get exactly what you want.
Yeah. So we know you guys have been in this position, right? And if you haven't been in this position, then we hope that you avoid it because we've been there.
Yeah.
But genuinely, like you have to push through the uncomfortableness of actually planning and reaching out to your parents and reaching out to anybody that you're going to spend the time with and set a schedule. But that comes after the communication of why you would want to do something with your spouse. And then we go on to like New Year's, right? Let's say we talked about like Thanksgiving and we talked about Christmas. We go on to New Year's. This is a really cool time where Lauren and I have actually found a ton of connection in planning for the new year. Lauren likes to pick words and set a word as an intention for the rest of the year. And then we also love to do goals. We did one year where we did like a reading list.
Yeah, that was
how many
really
books
fun.
were on that?
12.
Yeah,
we
had
did
12,
we did like a book
like
club.
a book per month of what we wanted to do. We set goals kind of for our kids. And really, they're not even like goals. It's just like things that we're wanting of the next year.
They're just things you're wanting to accomplish. Yeah.
And, but it's a really cool time to connect to in between Christmas and New Year's because there is a lot of downtime. You are spending a lot of time together. And your kids are there. Mm-hmm. Right. And so you get to build different relationships with them and you get to connect with them in different ways too. My suggestion, truthfully, for everyone would be to intentionally set things that you want to be doing in the next year, and then figure out a way to execute on them. And I know because it's happened with our kids that we've been able to like set some pretty cool things and run with that.
Well, I think involving your kids and involving like the other people in your house, do you know what I mean? Which would just be like your kids and your spouse. I'm like, who else is living with you? I don't know, maybe like a cousin. I have no idea. But bringing in your kids and bringing in your partner specifically and sharing those things with them. Like not only sharing your wants, but like you said, sharing your goals as far as like, hey, this is what I'm wanting. We every year to like help us connect and just to mark off like check boxes for our family. One of the things that you and I do that we've done for a really long time is like we did a bucket list for a really long time just to say, and we asked each kid individually like, hey,
what are some things you want to do throughout the year?
What are some things, well, not even just throughout the year, but like what are some things that are really important for you to do like for Christmas, like to get ready for Christmas? Like what are like maybe 3 things that you're like if I don't do this, I'm going to be so sad, right? So is it like gingerbread house making? Is it like a movie night out by the tree? Is it just being very intentional with your time? And I feel like that really helps, again, with like the presence aspect of it, not to be like, what's going on here? And even like getting ready for Thanksgiving, it's like, what are some things that you're grateful for? I've been trying to keep on my phone a gratitude list every day that I'll just put something that I'm grateful for throughout the day on my phone. And I feel like that has been really helpful for me, just to be like, okay, wait, I really actually have so many things, instead of focusing on like, what do I not have? Or like, what am I looking forward to? It's like, hold on, what do I have right now that I'm actually so grateful for? And like, what memories and intentions can I create now, instead of worrying so much about, what I'm going to do in February of next year. It's just kind of like staying very present, but then also involving your kids in their goals and starting to ask them now of like, hey, next year, like, what are some things that you want to do? And like you said, they were so simple. Like some of our kids, like one of the years I was like, let's make it a goal to like go potty in the toilet. Do you know what I mean? And that year they were potty trained. Do you know what I mean? And we just put it on a little, like, literally, like we literally got out a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I think it was colored because that's all we had. And we just, with a Sharpie, like made little boxes and wrote out the goal. And we were like, when you get it, like you get to put a sticker in there. And like, but they got to see it. And then we put it on their bulletin boards in their room. And it was just like a fun reminder, not only for us to help them achieve those goals, but also for them to see it. And I think it like helps create that anticipation, and it helps you look forward to things and like not feel like you're stagnant or not feel like you're, comparing yourself to everybody else. It's like, no, like this is all I have to worry about is just my little bubble of happiness here. And we're going to move forward that way. Because I think a lot of times the relationships get lost during this time of year as well. I think truthfully, because it's kind of like you said, like we're just constantly like moving at such a fast pace to be like,
it's not even that. I would more say like we just continually are doing throughout this time of year. We're continually doing things for other people.
Yeah.
And we forget the most important person, which is ourselves, and then our relationship second, right? And we're putting our kids first, our families first, the presents and everything first. And we lose sight of what's actually important in our lives. And truthfully, we do that throughout the rest of the year too. We've seen it so many times, and that's why we do what we do, is because people will prioritize everything else over themselves and over their relationship, right? And so throughout this time, I guess our challenge for everybody would be to prioritize your relationship and connect within your relationship and make these holidays, rather than an excuse to get distant from each other, actually like a reason to come closer.
Yeah. One of the things I'm excited that we're going to do, that I was just talking to you about right before this, it was an idea that came up and I was like, holy crap, this is such a good idea. I want to do it. Was a love letter, like advent calendar. And I was like thinking about it. And I'm like, originally I was like, oh my gosh, this seems so like hard to do. And then I was like, no, it's not so easy. Right. And all it is just taking however many days you want to do it, whether you want to start December 1st or you want to start now, or you want to start like right after Thanksgiving or whatever that looks like, right? You just pick a day and you write love notes to your spouse or your partner for all the days leading up until Christmas. And then they have a love letter or a love note, and they can be like affirmations. They can be just things you love about them. They can be like a way to connect, whatever that is, something you appreciate about them. And you're compiling those, and like in my head, probably how I'll do it for you is just putting it in like a little mason jar and like putting it like in our bathroom, probably, so you can get it every day. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think you can make it a little bit more extensive than that, but I know for myself, like the more simple, the better, because it's actually going to happen. You could do things where like every day you're like intentionally hiding it somewhere for them, and just like make it like have fun and do it because you want to do it, not because you feel like you have to do it. I think another thing that's super fun that I know you and I look forward to a lot during this time is like being very intentional with the time that we are choosing to spend together, because it is so busy. So being very intentional with planning, like one night a week to do something together.
Yeah. That
is a way that we can connect on an emotional level of like, okay, what kind of, are we going out? Are we staying in? Are we going to, like bake cookies together? Are we going to watch a movie together? Are we going to, like do the conversation cards and, pick a couple there? If you have our conversation cards, I would recommend during this time of year, especially, like if you can even pull one card a day and talk about it, I can almost guarantee your relationship is going to improve, like I would say by like 90% than what it is right now. Like, you will feel more connected. You will feel more like grounded as an individual and as a person, because those cards are meant to not only bring out an answer from your partner, but also to help you answer as well and to get to know yourself a little bit more. And I think we forget that because we talk a lot about we're doing so many things for other people and then not forgetting to do it for yourself. And if you're single and you're listening to this, like, do a freaking advent calendar for yourself with love notes of like how amazing you are. I was just sitting here thinking about that of like, how cool would it be if we sat down and did 25, things that I wish I could tell myself on a day-to-day basis and then randomly pull them out of a jar. Like, sometimes we need to be our biggest cheerleaders because we aren't. Do you know what I mean? And like setting time to intentionally do things for ourselves during this time of year to get exactly what we want. And I think we just forget about ourselves way too much, and it's not healthy. Or do a brain dump on your phone every day, or a gratitude list, or just some way to connect to yourself is going to be huge.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think that we got a lot. I think hopefully people got stuff out of that.
I hope so. Those are the ways, though, I feel like that's how we'll be connecting this season and doing that there.
I just think that there's something so important, like aside from all the ideas that you could do, right? There's something so important of like not being afraid to communicate with your spouse throughout this time of year. Like, genuinely don't be afraid of it. And I guess that all starts with asking yourself what you're wanting to do, without worrying about their opinion of it, and then being able to communicate that. That's going to be huge.
Yeah.
So guys, thank you so much for listening. And we hope that the holidays are everything that you are wanting, but we also know that it's difficult. So stick it out, and we are here to help.